What if I told you that over 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor discovered 7 laws so powerful, so brutally effective, that they could eliminate fear from your life completely? And stick around until the end, because I'm going to give you a complete 30-day practice system that costs nothing, takes just 15 minutes a day, and will fundamentally rewire how you process fear. But you need all 7 laws first to understand why this system works. Not reduce it, not manage it, eliminate it. Marcus Aurelius faced assassination plots, plague, war, and betrayal, yet he wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But here's what nobody tells you about Stoicism. It's not some feel-good philosophy. It's harsh, it's uncomfortable, and it demands you face truths about yourself that most people run from their entire lives. In the next hour, I'm going to walk you through 7 brutal Stoic laws that ancient warriors, emperors, and philosophers used to become absolutely fearless. These aren't motivational quotes, they're psychological weapons that, when applied correctly, will rewire how you process fear, anxiety, and uncertainty forever. Fair warning, some of these laws will make you deeply uncomfortable. That's the point, because on the other side of that discomfort is a version of you that nothing can shake. These principles come from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, who was a slave who became one of history's greatest teachers, and Seneca, who faced exile and execution with absolute calm. These weren't armchair philosophers, they were people who faced real terror and discovered how to transcend it. Let's begin. The first brutal law is the most uncomfortable. Memento mori. Remember, you will die. Not someday, not eventually, actually die. Your heart will stop beating. Your consciousness will end. Everything you're worried about right now, every fear you're carrying, will be completely irrelevant. Now, your first reaction might be, that's morbid, that's depressing. But here's the brutal truth the Stoics understood. Your fear of death is the root of almost every other fear you experience. Think about it. Why are you afraid? Because you might be judged, rejected, humiliated. But what's the real fear underneath? That you'll be cast out, alone, and unable to survive. A primal fear connected to survival, to death. Why are you afraid of failure? Because it might mean poverty, loss of status, inability to provide. Again, survival fears, death fears wearing different masks. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't pessimism. This was the ultimate freedom. In the historical example, when Epictetus was a slave, his master broke his leg as punishment. According to ancient accounts, Epictetus calmly said, "You are breaking my leg." And when it finally snapped, he simply stated, "Did I not tell you that you were breaking it?" How do you remain that calm during torture? Because Epictetus had already accepted the worst possible outcome, his own death. Once you've accepted that you will die, that it could happen at any moment, physical pain becomes just sensation. Humiliation becomes just noise. Failure becomes just information.
Here's how you apply this brutally effective law today. Every morning, spend 60 seconds visualizing your death, not in a morbid way, but factually. Imagine your funeral. Who would come? What would they say? What regrets would you have? Now ask yourself, based on that reality, what should I do today? This practice, done daily, recalibrates your entire fear response. That presentation you're nervous about, memento mori, you're going to die anyway, might as well say what needs to be said. That relationship conversation you're avoiding, memento mori, your time is finite, stop wasting it in fear. When you truly internalize that your death is certain and its timing is uncertain, you stop living in hypothetical fears and start living in actual reality. The reason most people fear everything is because they've never faced the one fear that underlies all others, their own mortality. You're building a life trying to avoid death, which is insane because death is the only guaranteed outcome. Memento mori doesn't make you reckless, it makes you ruthlessly focused on what actually matters. The Stoics who practiced this weren't depressed nihilists, they were the most vibrant, courageous, effective people in history, because they weren't wasting energy on phantom fears. Your death is coming. That's not negative, that's the most liberating fact you can internalize. It means you can stop performing for people who won't remember you in 100 years. You can stop fearing outcomes that won't matter when you're gone. You can finally live.
The second brutal law, amor fati, love your fate. Not accept it, not tolerate it, love it. This is where Stoicism separates the practitioners from the pretenders. Anyone can say they accept what happens to them, but can you genuinely love the worst thing that's ever happened to you? Can you look at your greatest failure, your deepest trauma, your most pain? Fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. This is the core of amor fati. Whatever happens to you, your job isn't to wish it were different. Your job is to use it as fuel. Most people spend their entire lives at war with reality. They think, if only this hadn't happened, I'd be happy. If only they hadn't betrayed me. If only I hadn't failed. This is psychological poison, because you're basing your peace of mind on changing something that's already happened, which is literally impossible. Amor fati says, what if the worst thing that happened to you was actually the best thing? Not because it felt good, but because it made you who you needed to become. Epictetus was enslaved as a child. His leg was permanently damaged by his master. He spent his youth in chains, powerless, abused. By conventional thinking, his life was destroyed before it began. But Epictetus later wrote, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him to himself." His enslavement became the foundation of his philosophy. He became one of the most influential teachers in human history, specifically because he learned to transform suffering into wisdom. Would he have developed that philosophy living a comfortable aristocratic life? Would his teachings on freedom have the same power if he'd never been enslaved? The brutal answer, probably not. This doesn't justify slavery or suffering. It reveals a deeper truth. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control whether it destroys you or forges you into something stronger. Here's the practice. Take the worst thing that's happened to you in the last year. Write it down. Now complete this sentence. This was actually necessary because. Force yourself to find the hidden advantage. The relationship that ended, it revealed incompatibilities that would have caused worse pain later. The job you lost, it freed you to find work that actually aligned with your values. The betrayal, it taught you to trust your intuition and set better boundaries. This isn't toxic positivity. This is the refusal to let circumstances defeat you psychologically. Amor fati is the ultimate anti-victim mentality. It says, I will use everything, waste nothing, and emerge from every situation more capable than I entered it. Now, before we get to Law 3, remember, these 7 laws build on each other. And at the end of this video, I'm giving you the exact daily practice system that ties all 7 together. Miss one law, and the system won't work, so stay with me. The third brutal law, premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Deliberately imagine everything that could go wrong in vivid detail before it happens. This is the opposite of what modern self-help tells you. You're told to think positive, to visualize success, to manifest abundance. The Stoics said, visualize disaster. Regularly imagine losing everything you have. See yourself failing spectacularly. Picture your worst fears coming true. Why? Because fear thrives in the unknown. What you've already mentally survived can't terrify you when it actually happens. Seneca wrote, "The man who has anticipated the coming of troubles takes away their power when they arrive." This is psychological inoculation. Just like a vaccine exposes you to a weakened form of a virus so your immune system can handle the real thing, premeditatio malorum exposes you to imagined adversity so your mind can handle real adversity. Most people are blindsided by setbacks because they've spent zero time preparing for them mentally. They've only visualized success, so when failure comes, their entire psychological framework collapses. They have no plan, no resilience, no strategy. They're completely unprepared. The Stoic does the opposite. Every day they spend time imagining, what if I lose my job? What if this relationship ends? What if I fail publicly? What if I lose all my money? And crucially, what would I do? How would I respond? Who would I be? Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome, the most powerful position on earth at the time. Yet in his meditations, he regularly reminded himself, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Was he being pessimistic? No, he was being prepared. By anticipating difficulty, nothing could catch him off guard. When generals betrayed him, when plague ravaged his empire, when his own son proved incompetent, Marcus didn't collapse into victim mentality. He'd already mentally rehearsed these scenarios. This is why he could write during Rome's darkest hours, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He wasn't improvising resilience in crisis. He'd built it through daily mental preparation.
Here's the brutal practice. Every Sunday, spend 20 minutes doing a fear audit. List everything you're worried about. Then, for each item, write out, worst-case scenario. What's the absolute worst that could happen? Likely outcome. What will probably actually happen? Response plan. If the worst case happens, what exactly will I do? Growth opportunity. How would surviving this make me stronger? Let's use a real example. You're afraid of getting fired. Worst case, you lose your job tomorrow with no savings. Likely outcome, you'd have notice, severance, unemployment benefits. Response plan, apply to 10 jobs per day, take freelance work, reduce expenses, move if necessary. Growth opportunity, you'd discover you're more resilient than you thought. You'd be forced to pursue work you actually care about instead of settling for security. The brutal truth. Right now, you're being controlled by vague, undefined fears. They lurk in your subconscious, making you anxious and risk-averse. Premeditatio malorum forces those fears into the light where you can examine them rationally. And here's what you discover. Most of your fears are either highly unlikely or completely survivable. The thing you've been terrified of, you'd actually handle it. Maybe not perfectly, but adequately. And on the other side, you'd be okay. Probably better than okay, because you'd have proven to yourself that you can handle hard things. This practice doesn't make you paranoid, it makes you confident, because you've mentally survived everything already. Public humiliation, already lived through it mentally. Financial loss, already developed a plan. Rejection, already processed it emotionally. When you've premeditated adversity, you stop walking through life in fear of the other shoe dropping. You've already mentally caught the shoe, examined it, and developed 12 contingency plans. Reality can't ambush you anymore. You're ready for anything.
Okay, pause for a second. We're 3 laws deep, and I need to be honest with you. Most people will watch this entire video, feel inspired, and do absolutely nothing with it. They'll go back to being controlled by the same fears they had before clicking. But at the end of this video, I'm giving you a 30-day challenge that separates the people who just consume content from the people who actually transform. It's completely free, takes 15 minutes a day, and it will fundamentally change how you experience fear. But here's the thing. That challenge only works if you understand all 7 laws first. So if you are serious about becoming fearless, keep watching. If you just want entertainment, this probably isn't for you. Now, let's get to Law 4. Law 4. The dichotomy of control. Focus only on what you control. The 4th brutal law is the most foundational, the dichotomy of control. There are things you control and things you don't control. Your only job is to focus completely on the former and be utterly indifferent to the latter. This sounds simple. It's not, because it requires you to let go of approximately 95% of what you currently worry about.
Epictetus opened his Enchiridion, his manual for living, with this: "Some things are within our control, and some things are not. It is only after you have faced up to this fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and can't control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible." What do you actually control? Your thoughts, your intentions, your responses, your effort. That's basically it. What don't you control? Other people's opinions, outcomes, the past, the future, other people's choices, your reputation, the economy, your health, whether you succeed or fail, literally everything else. Most people spend 90% of their mental energy on things in the second category and 10% on the first. The Stoics invert this completely. They pour 100% of their focus into the only things they actually control, and they're completely unmoved by everything else. When Epictetus was told his master was about to break his leg, he didn't beg, he didn't try to escape, he didn't protest the injustice. Why? Because none of those things were within his control at that moment. His leg breaking or not breaking wasn't his choice. His master's cruelty wasn't his choice. What was in his control? His response, his inner state, his interpretation of the event. So he focused entirely on maintaining composure, on seeing the event clearly, on remaining philosophically grounded. The physical pain came and went. His inner peace remained untouched. This is the brutal power of the dichotomy of control. When you truly internalize it, you become psychologically invincible, because nothing outside your control can disturb you, and everything inside your control is something you can work with. Here's the practice that will transform your life. For the next 7 days, every time you feel anxious or upset, stop and ask, "Is this within my control?" Your boss criticized your work. Can you control their opinion? No. Can you control whether you learn from the feedback and improve? Yes. Your partner seems distant. Can you control their feelings? No. Can you control whether you communicate honestly about your concerns? Yes. You're worried about tomorrow's presentation. Can you control the outcome? No. Can you control your preparation, your effort, your attitude? Yes. Here's the brutal part. Once you identify something as outside your control, you must become completely indifferent to it. Not suppress your feelings, not pretend it doesn't matter, but genuinely release any attachment to controlling it.
The reason you're anxious is because you're trying to control things you can't control. You're trying to control other people's opinions. You're trying to control outcomes. You're trying to control circumstances. And every single day, reality reminds you that you can't. So you feel powerless, anxious, fearful. But here's what the Stoics discovered. When you release your grip on what you can't control and focus entirely on what you can, you don't lose power, you gain it. Because you stop wasting energy on impossible tasks and pour it all into the few things that actually respond to your effort. Can you control whether people like you? No.
Can you control being someone worth liking? Yes. Can you control whether you succeed? No. Can you control giving yourself the best possible chance? Yes. Can you control what happens to you? No. Can you control who you become because of it? Yes. This is the most liberating and most brutal realization simultaneously. You have far less control than you think, and far more responsibility than you want. Less control over outcomes, more responsibility for your responses. Less control over circumstances, more responsibility for your character. When you fully embrace the dichotomy of control, fear starts to evaporate, because fear is always about something outside your control. You can't fear what you've already released. You can only work diligently on what's yours to work on, and be indifferent to everything else.
We're at the halfway point. You now know 4 of the 7 brutal laws. But here's what most people don't realize. Knowing these laws intellectually does nothing. At the end of this video, I'm revealing the 30-day challenge that actually transforms knowledge into fearlessness. Keep watching. The 5th brutal law. Voluntary discomfort. Deliberately make your life harder. Choose pain. Seek out difficulty. Not because you're masochistic, but because comfort is the enemy of growth and resilience. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Translation: regularly put yourself through the hardships you fear, so they lose their power over you. Here's the brutal truth about modern life. You're soft. We all are. We live in unprecedented comfort. Temperature-controlled environments, food delivered to our door, entertainment on demand, pain avoided at all costs. And what has this comfort produced? The most anxious, depressed, fearful generation in history, because we've become so unaccustomed to discomfort that even minor hardship feels catastrophic. The Stoics understood that resilience is like a muscle. If you never stress it, it atrophies. If you always take the easy path, the hard path becomes impossible. If you always choose comfort, discomfort becomes terrifying. Voluntary discomfort is deliberately choosing to be cold, hungry, tired, or uncomfortable when you don't have to be. Not to punish yourself, but to train yourself, to prove to yourself that you can handle difficulty, to build psychological and physical resilience. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He could have lived in absolute luxury every single day. Instead, he regularly practiced voluntary poverty. He'd sleep on a hard floor, eat only bread and water for days, wear rough clothing, walk long distances in bad weather. Why? Because he knew that fortune could reverse at any moment, and if he'd become dependent on luxury, losing it would destroy him psychologically. But if he regularly practiced discomfort, then losing his wealth would just be another Tuesday. And this wasn't hypothetical. Seneca was eventually exiled, stripped of his possessions, and ordered to commit suicide by Emperor Nero. According to accounts, he faced his execution with complete calm, even comforting his distraught friends. How?
because he'd been mentally and physically preparing for hardship his entire life. Here's your brutal practice menu. Choose at least 3 to implement this month. Cold exposure. Take a 3-minute cold shower every morning. The immediate discomfort is harmless and builds mental toughness. Your mind will scream at you to turn it warm. Don't. Breathe through it. Realize you can endure. Fasting. Skip a meal per day or fast for 24 hours once a week. Experience hunger. Realize it won't kill you. Discover that most of your need to eat is habit, not biology. Physical challenge. Do something that scares you physically. A long run, heavy weights, a difficult hike. Push to the point where your body says stop and then go a little further. Expand your threshold. Digital fast. Go 24 hours with no phone, no internet, no entertainment. Sit with boredom. Face your own thoughts. Realize you don't need constant stimulation to be okay. Voluntary poverty. Spend a week living on $20. Eat cheap food. Don't buy anything unnecessary. Realize how little you actually need to survive. Social discomfort. Have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Say no to something you'd usually say yes to. Set a boundary. Endure the temporary discomfort of possible conflict or disapproval.
The brutal truth. You're afraid of discomfort because you never experience it voluntarily. So when it arrives involuntarily through circumstances, you collapse. You have no reference point for handling difficulty because you've spent your entire life avoiding it. Voluntary discomfort flips the script. You're no longer a victim of hardship. You're a practitioner of it. Cold weather, you've deliberately frozen yourself. Hunger, you've deliberately fasted.